Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
National Guard troops being deployed, it looks like, across the United States, at least I think 19 states, but a lot of different reports coming out even as we speak. So we'll be monitoring that, looking at it. That'll be our top story. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it, but we'll try to make sense of it together as we unpack that story. Also, the family of Virginia Giuffre outraged over the release of the Epstein interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. We'll tell you why. Pride Parade in Ottawa shut down by pro-Palestinian or pro-Palestine protesters. So the alliance there showing cracks. Also, I don't know what we will run into with our friend Dragon up in Montreal. He's monitoring another demonstration, a pride demonstration in Montreal tonight. If there is anything significant that happens as a result of that later in the evening, he may bring a report to us live from the streets up there as well. That will certainly be tied directly into what happened today in Ottawa, which we will show you in due course. Also, Mark Carney meeting with Zelensky, speaking at their Independence Day ceremonies in Ukraine, and being treated as a guest of honor there. So we'll show you some of that as well, although terrible audio from today's event. They seemed unable to deal with distortion, but we'll try to cut through the distortion and give you some clarity here tonight on Maverick News when we come back on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So I'm promising clarity, but honestly, I shouldn't promise clarity, because this story about Trump deploying National Guard troops to other cities beyond Washington, D.C. is evolving. It's breaking news at this hour. And I'm having real trouble tracking the truth on this one at this point, because I'm seeing all kinds of conflicting reports. Everything from he's not deploying troops to he is deploying thousands of troops to 19 different states, to reports of him threatening to deploy troops, to backtracking on deploying troops. I can tell you that as of this hour, there are credible reports that he is going to deploy troops. He's in the process of doing that, certainly targeting Chicago and Baltimore. So I think the most prudent thing to do at this moment is to simply just do a Google search and see what the latest headlines are from various news outlets and try to make some sense of this. Of course, this is all part of his effort to, as he puts it, crack down on crime. And here are the headlines as of this hour. Trump, BBC, Trump threatens to send National Guard to Baltimore to clean up crime. Times Now, just 28 minutes ago, Trump threatens to deploy National Guard troops to Baltimore. The Guardian, that's 8 hours ago, Trump manufactured crisis to justify plan to send National Guard to Chicago. Washington Post, 20 hours ago, Pentagon plans military deployment in Chicago as Trump eyes crackdown. The Independent, just 20 minutes ago, Trump threatens to cut bridge funding and send troops to Baltimore. PBS. Trump's no fan of PBS. Their headline, as within this hour, Trump expands targets for possible military deployments. Let's click on that. Trump expands targets for possible military deployment to more Democratic-led cities. Trump on Sunday threatened to expand his military deployments to more Democratic-led cities, responding to an offer by Maryland's governor to join him on a tour of Baltimore. I did read that, by saying he might instead send in the troops. Last week, Trump said he was considering Chicago. And okay, we've got another story breaking here. We're going to go to that in just a moment. Story about an active shooter. Trump said he was considering Chicago and New York for troop deployments, similar to what he has unleashed on the nation's capital, where thousands of National Guard and federal law enforcement officers are patrolling the streets. Trump made the threat to Baltimore in a spat with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, a Democrat who has criticized Trump's unprecedented flex of federal power aimed at combating crime and homelessness in Washington. Moore last week invited Trump to visit his state to discuss public safety and walk the streets. Yes, that's all in line with what I've been getting in various news reports. I think that's all very credible. Now, before we dig into that more, we're going to come back to this, but let me just check this, because apparently we have a breaking story. More breaking news as of this hour. Looks like an active shooter on Columbia USC campus. I'm going to want to save that clip, so let me get you the latest down here. And if you have been on Rumble Channel 2 of late, you'll see that it is not entirely functional, and you probably want to go over to Twitch. Here's an interesting clip. I'm going to hold that one too. This is all related to the deployment of troops. Clip from Millie. But I want to get you this latest on the active shooter at USC. So hang on. Trying to keep up with the news, but it's moving so fast today that it's virtually impossible for a one-man crew here. Hopefully we get something in from Dragon later in the broadcast. So USC active shooter. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. So He's walking down this. Active shooter, USC library, 6-foot white male with black pants. This is just within like 15, 20 minutes. This post, people being encouraged to take cover rather, and there's an first responders have issued an alert. Active shooter at Thomas Cooper Library on Columbia campus. Subject reported as a 6-foot white male with black pants. We have video of a suspect carrying what appears to be possibly a rifle or a gun. All right. Here he is here. Again, this is just raw video straight off social media. I caution you, before I show this to you, this is what is being posted. I cannot confirm if the person in this video is indeed the active shooter. This is being posted as a possible suspect. The audio down, it's just wind noise. And as you can see, carrying what appears to possibly be a gun in his left hand, swinging it and walking in a very casual manner. Let me just see what else I can find out on this. So we do know, here we go. See if we can get you some other video on this too. Active shooter reported at University of South Carolina. And this is just within the last few minutes. Stop sharing all of this and bring this up. Carolina alert, urgent Carolina alert, active shooter at Thomas Cooper Library. So this is like in progress as we speak. And 6 minutes ago, WTOC reporting no evidence of active shooter. Police respond to active shooter. 41 minutes ago, 25 minutes ago, another headline, USC shooting reports active shooter at Thomas Cooper Library. And 6 minutes ago, WTOC saying no evidence of active shooter. What is that all about? Let's see here. Multiple police departments responded to an active shooter situation. Of the WTOC. Here we go. Live now.
Law enforcement resources to assist in this investigation. And those law enforcement agencies are working to determine fact from rumor at this time, trying to find out if this was a report of an active shooter or if this in fact was an active shooter on the University of South Carolina campus. And again, we want to make sure that all of you are staying safe. So we appreciate you joining us and coming to us for that first alert. As of right now, the Carolina Alert System from the official account from the University of South Carolina has shared to still shelter in place until more verified information can come in. We are working to get you some video and photos from the scene from on campus, and we're looking to do that, of course, with safety in mind. So thank you for joining us. We're going to continue to be coming on here and updating you every few minutes, just as soon as we get any new information, any updates. And we do want to try to get to our...
This is as much audio as I can squeeze out of this, guys, at the moment.
But the last update from campus police 15 minutes ago at this time, this came out 7:10.
So what he's telling us here is this...
Carolina alert. No evidence of an active shooter.
There is no evidence of an active shooter. Something new for
Police are
him here right
searching.
now.
Police continue to shelter in place until
But they are
arrest
asking
and
people to
all
remain sheltered
So,
in
because there is
place.
a possibility that this is not an active shooter, we're not going to go with the initial description
So
of the suspect that was shared from
there
the
was.
Carolina alert system.
Okay, I'm just going to
And
bring the
so
audio down
we
since
do
it's
know
too
that
low
the
anyway.
witness is still in a shelter in place. That is confirmed.
So they did release a description of a suspect, but it's now not clear if this is even actually a real thing. They're trying to confirm that, but until they confirm what is going on, they are asking people to shelter in place, stay indoors, and they are continuing to investigate this. But the whole thing may be something of a false alarm. Not really clear. Again, this is one of the strangest news story days in quite a while, with conflicting reports about the deployment of National Guard troops and now conflicting reports surrounding this active shooter incident or not at USC, South Carolina. And we'll continue to update this as we get more information filtering through here tonight. I don't know what to make of that either. And we won't know what to make of it until we get some actual facts. And then this video of this guy here, don't know. As I said, I cautioned you, take that with a grain of salt, because that's just posted online, social media, somebody saying what this is. But just because somebody says video is something doesn't make it so. So often these days, people put things up and recycle old footage, or it could be even just fake video at this point, and a complete fabrication. We don't know. That could have been, I don't know where that was even shot, or when. No way to know at this point. Everything in question. But if you're watching and you are in that area, the advice from authorities down there is to stay safe, shelter in place until the investigation reaches a point where they can verify one way or another what is going on. Let's go back now to this story about the deployment of National Guard troops possibly in other cities, not just Washington, D.C. This coming up here with General Milley to the national troops being deployed to U.S. cities. Apparently, he says, we do not report to a dictator. We don't take an oath to a country, a tribe, or a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or a tyrant or a dictator. We don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We've taken an oath to the Constitution. Have not watched this previously. I haven't vetted this audio clip, so I don't have full context, but it is being posted tonight in some way in relation to all this going on. I'm going to run it, and it's related to Hegseth revoking General Milley's security detail and orders review. So I'm going to run this, and then we'll come back to these other pieces of information surrounding all of this, and so many different ways to interpret or process what is going on with all this. Here's Milley's clip.
We don't take an oath to a country. We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that it's America, and we're willing to die to protect it.
So again, difficult for me to keep up with everything going on with regard to this story, but so I don't fully know what the context is surrounding that clip. You can draw your own conclusions, some of them fairly obvious, but I'm not sure about timing and we'll come back to it. So let me scan over here. And again, all this happening, breaking in real time tonight. So this was earlier today with former mayor. Let me get you the clip. Right here. Okay. Former mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, discussing the possibility of National Guard troops being deployed to Chicago. A political adversary for Trump, to be sure. Lori Lightfoot on ABC today, being, the news magazine program day, where you get the long form interviews on Sundays with the newsmakers and the hosts of those Sunday afternoon news interview programs. Such was the case here on ABC today. Let's bring it up. And here we go.
Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Lori, thank you so much for spending your time with us this weekend. So what's your immediate reaction to the possibility of the National Guard being deployed to Chicago?
Well, obviously, it would be a terrible mistake. But as we've seen throughout his political career, and particularly this second term, President Trump likes breeding chaos and fear. But what I will urge my fellow Chicagoans is to lay daisies at the feet of any military force that shows up in our city. Don't show up in mass. Don't show up to engage in antagonistic tactics. Let's show what we know, which is how to protest peacefully in the city of Chicago.
Now, on Friday, President Trump suggested he'd send the National Guard to Chicago because that's what people in the city want. Here's what he had to say.
And the people in Chicago, Mr. Vice President, are screaming for us to come. They're wearing red hats, just like this one, but they're wearing red hats. African-American ladies, beautiful ladies, are saying, please, President Trump, come to Chicago. Please. I did great with the black vote, as you know, and they want something to happen. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York.
All right, you heard the president's words right there. So what's your reaction to Trump's words and what he had to say?
It's painful to have a president who lives in his own fantasy world, who lies with such incredible ease. Nobody here in Chicago is asking him to come. Our violent crime rates are down, as they are all across this country. He will manufacture a crisis. He will try to provoke confrontation and then use that as a justification. That's why we need to do what many before who engaged in peaceful protests, not only in this city, but across the country. We need to lay daisies at the feet of any military force here. The National Guard is not a police force. They are a military force. We've seen, unfortunately, tragedy strike when they've gone in other cities, particularly during the summer of 2020 in Minneapolis and Louisville. We don't need the National Guard here. We have great partnerships, and we have for decades, with our local sheriff's department, the state police, our federal partners. There is no reason whatsoever that a political sideshow that President Trump is going to manufacture to send the military into the great city of Chicago. We're not going to have it. I'm confident that there will be lawsuits that will be brought, but we are mobilizing neighborhood by neighborhood to make sure that our residents actually feel safe, that our small businesses do not suffer economically, as has happened in other cities, but we'll be prepared to push back on what is an absolutely illegal authoritarian action on the part of this president.
Now, when you were mayor in 2021, you actually asked then U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland to send ATF agents to Chicago for 6 months, as well as more federal prosecutors and federal marshals. So should Chicago welcome help from the National Guard as well? What's the difference here?
No, the difference in the summer of 2020, we were awash in illegal guns, and we needed additional support from the federal government to frankly step up and do its job. That is far different than what the experience is that we're talking about now. And that was actually not Merrick Garland in 2020. That was under the Trump administration. What we said is, look, if you really want to be a partner with us, help us stop the flow of illegal guns. Pass federal common sense gun control measures. Of course, no support from the federal government for the things that we actually needed were forthcoming. So it's an apples to apples situation. And again, the National Guard is not a police force. They are a military force. They are trained not to de-escalate, not to build relationships with community in a time of crisis. What they're trained to do is put down a threat with lethal force. That is not what we need in this moment in Chicago. Now, we've welcomed the National Guard. They were great partners and friends of ours through COVID, through other national disasters. That is what they were built to do domestically in communities. They are not a local police force, and that's got to be very clear. We don't need them to do policing on the streets of Chicago.
And I was referring to under the Biden administration in 2021. But I do want to ask you this then. You said that's not what Chicago needs. So what does Chicago need right now?
Chicago needs to make sure that federal funds to shore up our social safety net, whether it's from Medicaid, whether it's for food programs, whether it's support for after-school programs. That's where we need the federal government to step up and do its job. But what we don't need is a manufactured crisis where the military is here. So Donald Trump gets this visual of acting like he's the commander-in-chief and taking over control of local cities. That is a stage act. We don't need that. We need him to focus on doing what he said he would do, which is to lower gas prices, to lower grocery prices, to make sure that we're not involved in any more foreign wars. All the things that he promised that he was going to do, he's failed miserably. So this is a distraction from the fact that in 9 months, he has failed to do his job as president of the United States.
Now, within those 9 months, President Trump has sent or threatened to send troops to L.A., D.C., Chicago, New York, and now Baltimore. So why do you think those cities are on his list?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? They're all Democratic cities, and in many of those cities, they're all controlled by Black mayors. This is reactivating his playbook from his campaign in 2020 when he went after Chicago and D.C. and Atlanta and other cities run by Democratic mayors, and many of them at that time run by Black women. Trump does not believe the cities are his allies, and so he wants to attack us, even though cities across this country are 80% of the GDP. The American economy would crater without the resources and economic firepower that cities bring to bear. He doesn't care about that. He wants to make sure that we submit to his will, and that is never going to happen in the city of Chicago.
Now, I will say right now, lawsuits are still playing out over the president's National Guard deployment in Los Angeles. So are there any lessons Chicago can learn from L.A.?
Well, I think there's lessons that we can learn from LA and from DC, but also going back to 2020. We have to fight him in the courts. We have to fight him peacefully. There's not a civil rights protest movement that has gone through this country in the last 100 years that hasn't either emanated in Chicago or that Chicago hasn't been a big part of, whether it's the labor movement, whether it's women's right to vote and choice, whether it's the disability rights, environmental, you name it. We are ground zero for a lot of that peaceful protest. We're going to draw upon that history and make sure that we make people see on a national and international stage, one, that Chicago is a great American city. Number two, that we do not submit to dictators and that we are handling our business ourselves.
Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, thank you for your time.
I have to say, it seems bizarre. I know that they have problems in many of these cities with crime. Crime's always a problem. But to bring in the National Guard like this in so many cities, there's more to this, obviously, than meets the eye. Don't go away. More ahead.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's just check again. See if I can get you anything new from Carolina Alerts. No, I wouldn't say there's anything really, really new. I'm going to check one other source here. I'm on it for you. I'll tell you, X/Twitter has become something of a cesspool of information. I'm looking for information on this, and I went into X just now, and something from some adult conference or something. I don't know. I won't even tell you what I saw, but it's. I would say keep your kids off X. So I'm going to bring this up and show you what's being posted on social media. But again, I caution you, anything I'm showing you is to be, again, just absorbed with a great deal of skepticism, because it's possible all of this may be the result of an inaccurate or erroneous report of an active shooter. It may be real, may be true, or maybe not. But we see here again this picture of this alleged possible suspect, and it may not be, but this is what's being posted. Some people saying it might be a gun. We see people sheltering in place here in this other video, and we have a video now of law enforcement at the scene. So let me bring this up again. Here's the alleged possible active shooter.
I work here. I have to keep people safe.
Okay, so go back. So this is shot from the campus. Go this way. There's the alleged possible suspect again. I don't know if that's a gun or not. He's walking awfully casually for somebody strolling along with a weapon in his hand. And here's...
I'm not gonna shut the fuck up and hide, no. I work here. I have to keep people safe. Dude, it's fine. I'm not gonna get away from the window. I'm gonna stay here because if people run towards the door, I'm gonna let them in. We know what the guy looks like. See? Like, I'm not gonna leave her out there. Come in. Thank you, boo. Y'all be safe. You too. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a gun or an umbrella or
people keep telling me to get away
something
from the window,
else
like,
that that guy was carrying.
I'm gonna let people in. No.
So this is a business.
It's on campus, y'all. Like
on campus, and
yeah, this is CBS.
They're letting people inside. Photo there of police on scene. Alleged school shooter at USC. White male, black shorts, gray t-shirt, backpack. Whatever is in his hands, someone thought it was possibly a gun. It doesn't look like a weapon. This is what is being written here. What do you think? Video 2, people sheltering, yes. And I'll go back to that video there. Does that look like a gun to you? Some sort of a strap to it. It doesn't look like it has a lot of weight to it. I mean, from this, it's hard to eat. No, I don't know. I just don't know. Okay, let's just pull this down off the screen. So we'll check. I'll keep checking in from time to time and keep you updated on all of that. J.D. Vance. He was making headlines over on NBC, where he was the feature interview on Meet the Press today. I did take that in. His choice of words, well, carefully chosen. I'll put it that way. He kept using words like aggressive and energetic. Those were the two key words that he kept bringing up. He says that he's optimistic, energetic diplomacy will end the Ukraine war. We have the interview here. I've got it queued up, and I want to unpack some of this for you tonight. There we go. All right, let's bring them up. Little bit of a technical challenge here, getting J.D. Vance up on the screen. But they touch on a few issues here, Ukraine being most prominent in the interview today. Okay. All right, I've just about got it so that we're ready to come on. Here we go.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and we really appreciate the time with you. We have a lot of topics to get to, but I do want to start with some breaking news. We've learned that the FBI is searching the home of former Ambassador John Bolton, his office as well.
Sure.
Can you tell me, why is the FBI raiding Ambassador Bolton's home and office, and did the White House get a heads up?
Well, so we're in the very early stages of an ongoing investigation into John Bolton. I will say we're going to let that investigation proceed. What I can tell you is that unlike the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI, our law enforcement agencies are going to be driven by law and not by politics. And so if we think that Ambassador Bolton has committed a crime, of course, eventually prosecutions will come. But as you know, Kristen, this is all part of gathering evidence, trying to understand something that we're worried about. And of course, I'll let the FBI comment on the next stage of the investigation.
What's at the root of this? Is this about classified documents?
Well, again, I'll let the FBI speak to that. Classified documents are certainly part of it, but I think that there's a broad concern about Ambassador Bolton. They're going to look into it. And like I said, if there's no crime here, we're not going to prosecute it. If there is a crime here, of course, Ambassador Bolton will get his day in court. That's how it should be.
Nothing political about this at all.
But again, our focus here is on, did he break the law? Did he commit crimes against the American people? If so, then he deserves to be prosecuted.
As we have this conversation, has Ambassador Bolton been detained, taken into custody, arrested in any form?
So this news just broke this morning, and the FBI, I haven't talked to the FBI this morning. I don't know the answer to that question. I assume that he hasn't been detained and won't be detained until there's actual prosecution, if that actually happens.
As you know, Ambassador Bolton is a frequent critic of President Trump's. He's also on Kash Patel's enemies list. The administration has already revoked his security clearance, Secret Service protection. Is Ambassador Bolton being targeted because he's a critic of President Trump?
No, not at all. And in fact, if we were trying to do that, we would just throw out prosecutions willy-nilly like the Biden administration DOJ did, prosecutions that later got thrown out in court. If we bring a case, and of course we haven't done that yet, the Department of Justice has not done that yet. We are investigating Ambassador Bolton, but if they ultimately bring a case, it will be because they determine that he has broken the law. We're going to be careful about that. We're going to be deliberate about that because we don't think that we should throw people, even if they disagree with us politically, maybe especially if they disagree with us politically. You shouldn't throw people willy-nilly in prison. You should let the law drive these determinations, and that's what we're doing.
But you know
what? You shouldn't throw people willy-nilly in prison. Yeah, good idea. What he says, it's like it's not matching with what we're seeing on the street, and I'm not sure. Oh, just let it roll.
a lot of people have already looked at this and said this looks a lot like retribution. Is this retribution?
Well, who has said it looks a lot like retribution, Kristen? A lot of people who tried to throw Donald Trump in prison for completely fake charges that were later thrown out by multiple different courts. I suspect that if the media and the American people let this case actually unfold, if they let the investigation unfold as it's currently doing, they're going to find out that what we're doing is being very deliberate and being very driven by the national interest and by the law here, and that's as it should be.
Let's turn to the war in Ukraine.
Sure.
I had the opportunity to speak with the Russian foreign minister.
I heard.
Yes, he says, as of right now, there's no meeting planned between President Putin and President Zelensky. And he added, there needs to be an agenda first, saying, quote, this agenda is not ready at all. Are the Russians stringing President Trump along?
No, not at all, Kristen. I think the Russians have made significant concessions to President Trump for the first time in 3.5 years of this conflict. They've
What concessions?
actually been willing to be flexible on some of their core demands. They've
Like-
talked about
Like what? I'm not aware of any.
what would be necessary to end the war. Of course, they haven't been completely there yet, or the war would be over, but we're engaging in this diplomatic process in good faith. We are trying to negotiate as much as we can with both the Russians and the Ukrainians to find a middle ground to stop the killing. I think what the president...
What concessions has Russia made to Trump? Can anyone think of even one? I'll look in the chat. I can't think of a single concession. Any at all. I am not aware. Any? I don't know. Let it roll.
Has tried to do here is try to engage in very aggressive, very energetic diplomacy because this war is not in anyone's interest. It's not in Europe or the United States' interest. We don't think it's in Russia or Ukraine's interest to keep going. So we're going to keep on pushing for a diplomatic solution. And one final point about this, Kristen, if you look historically, whenever you have a complicated war with a lot of death and destruction, it kind of goes in fits and starts. There are hills and valleys to the negotiation. We sometimes feel like we've made great progress with the Russians, and sometimes, as the president has said, he's been very frustrated with the Russians. And we're going to keep on doing what we have to do to bring this thing to a close. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think that we're going to continue to make progress, but ultimately, whether the killing stops, that determination is going to belong to whether the Russians and the Ukrainians can actually find some middle ground here.
Well, you talk about concessions, and yet the Russians rejected the ceasefire proposal that President Trump put forward. There's no meeting plan between President Putin and President Zelensky. And this week, Russia targeted an American factory in Ukraine. There were 600 people inside at the time. No one was killed. What makes you think President Putin is serious about peace?
Well, I didn't say they conceded on everything, but what they have conceded is the recognition that Ukraine will have territorial integrity after the war. They've recognized that they're not going to be able to install a puppet regime in Kiev. That was, of course, a major demand at the beginning. And importantly, they've acknowledged that there is going to be some security guarantee to the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Again, have they made every concession? Of course they haven't. Should they have started the war? Of course they haven't. But we're making progress, Kristen. And what I admire about the president in this moment is he's not asking 3.5 years ago. He's not, trying to focus on every nitpicky detail of how this thing started 3.5 years ago. He's trying to focus on the nitpicky details of now, of what do the parties disagree on, what do they agree on, and how do you build a foundation from one side of that ledger to the other so that you can stop the killing.
But was President Trump, were you enraged when you learned that Russia targeted an American company based in Ukraine?
I don't
was
like
that not
it,
a slap
Kristen.
in the face
I
to
don't.
the peace
I don't
process?
like it, Kristen. But this is a war, and this is why we want to stop the killing. The Russians have done a lot of things that we don't like. A lot of civilians have died. We've condemned that stuff from the get-go, and frankly, President Trump has done more to apply pressure and to apply economic leverage to the Russians, certainly than Joe Biden did for 3.5 years when he did nothing but talk, but do nothing to bring the killing to a stop. So you ask me what I'm enraged by. What I'm enraged by is the continuation of the war. What I'm enraged by is a presidency and Joe Biden who for 3 years did nothing to end the killing. What I'm actually excited about right now is that we have a president who's engaging in energetic diplomacy to try to stop the killing. That's as it should be. I think the American people should be proud of it. And whatever the outcome of this, whether the war ends in 3 months or 6 months or hopefully not beyond, but maybe, we should be proud that we have a president who's trying to stop the killing. He's done it, by the way, 6 wars that the president has brought to a close all over the world. This would be the 7th.
He threatened to bring in secondary sanctions, first over 30 days, then over 10. Then he got the summit in Alaska. The deadline passed. He did nothing. The summit took place. He stopped talking about it. No additional sanctions put in place. He basically tacoed out again.
It's the most complicated, but we're trying despite that.
I had the opportunity to interview Secretary Rubio last week, and he said he actually doesn't think that new sanctions would force Putin into a ceasefire. Are sanctions now off the table, Mr. Vice President?
The sanctions aren't off the table, but we're going to make these determinations on a case-by-case basis. What do we think is actually going to exert the right kind of leverage to bring the Russians to the table? Now, you said sanctions were not going to lead to a ceasefire. I think that's obviously correct. If you look at the way the Russians have conducted themselves, they don't want a ceasefire. They don't want a ceasefire for complicated reasons. We, of course, have pushed for a ceasefire, but again, we don't control what Russia does. If we did, the war would have been over 7 months ago. What we do believe, though, is that we continue to have a lot of cards. The President of the United States has a lot of cards left to play to apply pressure to try to bring this conflict to a close, and that's what we're going to do.
You take me to my next question. Where exactly is the pressure on Russia to do anything if you're not right now imposing new sanctions? How do you get them to a place of getting to the table with Zelensky and stopping to drop bombs?
But Kristen, I think that question betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of where we are. The president has applied aggressive economic leverage, for example, the secondary tariffs on India to try to make it harder for the Russians to get rich from their oil economy. He's tried to make it clear that Russia can be re-invited into the world economy if they stop the killing, but they're going to continue to be isolated if they don't stop the killing. The president has applied more economic pressure to the Russians to stop this war than Biden did in 3 years.
You know,
so the idea that we're not doing anything, we're already doing things right now, and this is how negotiation works. You do something, you talk to the parties, you try to see if there's a meeting of minds. Again, we believe we've already seen some significant concessions from both sides just in the last few weeks. We're going to eventually be successful or we'll hit a brick wall. And if we hit a brick wall, then we're going to continue this process of negotiation, of applying leverage. This is the energetic diplomacy that's going to bring this war to a close.
I hear what you're saying about India. China is actually the largest buyer of
energetic diplomacy. It's kind of a new one. It's got a snappy little ring to it. I am still trying to figure out what that means.
Of Russian oil.
They're close. They're about equal.
Why no sanctions on China?
Well, obviously we have a 54% tariff on the PRC right now. So we've already applied pretty hefty sanctions on the Chinese, and we've had a number of conversations at all levels of government to try to encourage the Chinese to be better partners in bringing this war to a close. So again, I think the question betrays a misunderstanding of what's going on. We are applying aggressive economic pressure to bring this war to a close. Maybe
aggressive economic pressure, whatever that means. Taco Man.
We will apply additional pressure. Maybe if we feel like we're making progress, we'll dial that pressure back. That give and take is part of the negotiation that we think is working. It hasn't reached its final outcome yet, but we're going to keep on working on this process for as long as we can.
Just to boil down what the Russian concessions might look like, is the only thing that President Trump is asking Russia to give up is not to invade all of Ukraine?
No, that's not it at all. It's providing the Ukrainians the kind of security guarantees that ensures that the country is not going to be invaded again. And this is really, this is why I think...
Yeah, they won't be coming from the United States because they are for sure, with Trump in office, not sending any troops, no reinforcements. They'll sell weapons with a 10% markup, but don't look for help.
We've made a lot of progress, Kristen. Even though we're not yet there, why we've made a lot of progress is fundamentally the disagreement here is over security guarantees versus where you draw the battle lines in Ukraine. So whether we solve those issues, we've actually identified the two critical issues, one to the Ukrainians, one to the Russians. And I think that that is where the fruit, if we ultimately solve this thing, that's where the fruit of an agreement will come.
I want to get to security guarantees, but very quickly, if Russia is allowed to keep...
Trump has shown his cards. He has, so he has no cards. He has almost no leverage. The only leverage he has is whether he can, is if he actually gets tougher on the issue, or if he just sides with Putin and just rolls over Ukraine. This is the strangest. This is the strangest war ever.
Any of the territory that it illegally seized, what message does that send to China? Does it give China a green light to invade Taiwan? Does it give Russia a green light to invade other European countries, which is what your European allies are concerned about?
Well, first of all, the Ukrainians are going to ultimately make the determination about where you draw the territorial lines in their own country. But Kristen, this is how wars ultimately get settled. If you go back to World War II, if you go back to World War I, if you go back to every major conflict in human history, they all end with some kind of negotiation. We're actually not active parties in the negotiation. We're effectively mediating. We're trying to mediate the Ukrainians and the Russians to come to some agreement. If the Ukrainians are willing to say something on territory that brings the conflict to the close, we're not going to stop them. We're also not going to force them because it's not our country. We're trying to play a constructive role. The president is trying to play a constructive role to bring peace to the region, but he's not going to force these parties to walk through the door. All he can do is open the door and ask them to negotiate in good faith.
You talk about security guarantees.
Sure.
Foreign Minister Lavrov discussed the importance of Russia being a part of security guarantees. Ukraine says that's a non-starter. Is that a non-starter for the United States as well?
How can Russia be part of the security guarantee when Russia is the country that invaded Ukraine? And if you're listening to what Vance is saying right now and you're buying into that the United States is just acting as a mediator, then you have to reject the whole premise that this whole thing started with a CIA-led coup during the Maidan uprising and installing a puppet Zelensky regime that is controlled by the United States. So, and you have to reject the whole premise that this is just a U.S. proxy war. So which is it? Because if you're on the side of J.D. Vance, you're probably of the mind set that this is a U.S. war against Russia, or at least it was. Now it isn't. If the U.S. is there because they are heavily involved, but to what degree? Well, I think that he's actually showing now that this isn't just a U.S.-led effort, that this wasn't just, that Zelensky is not just a puppet. That's what he's asserting here. I don't know. This is like it's a very strange sort of a logic flip-flop. He's not entirely contradicting himself here, but if you analyze what he's saying, this is a contradiction to that whole premise.
How can Russia secure Ukraine when it's dropping bombs on
There's
Ukraine.
a little bit of a talking past each other here. First of all, we're not talking about security guarantees until after the war has come to a close. And of course, the Russians are going to be a part of the conversation about bringing that war to a close. So, of course, they're going to have some stake in this. They're going to talk about this. That doesn't mean that they're going to have troops in Ukrainian territory, but how can you reasonably provide security guarantees without talking to the Russians about what would be necessary to bring the war to a close? So I think there's a little bit of people talking past each other. This is going to be...
I think he's talking past himself. Like it doesn't really jive what he's saying. There's a little bit of a... It doesn't follow a logical progression here. He's taking some leaps of logic that just don't fly.
A security guarantee provided by a host of nations. I think the Europeans are obviously going to play a big role. We think there are other countries all over the world that might play a big role. The Russians are going to be involved because they're the critical party that's necessary to stop the killing. Again, this is how negotiations happen. It's this give and take. It's a conversation between both sides.
Very quickly before I move to domestic issues for Americans who are watching, can you guarantee no U.S. boots on the ground as a part of these security guarantees?
The president's very clear. There are not going to be boots on the ground in Ukraine, but we are going to continue to play an active role in trying to ensure that the Ukrainians have the security guarantees and the confidence they need to stop the war on their end. And the Russians feel like they can bring the war to a conclusion on their end. It's complicated, Kristen, but we're going to keep on trying to play these parties. We're going to keep on trying to convince these parties to talk to each other and continue to play the game of diplomacy, because that's the only way to get this thing wrapped up.
All right, let's talk about some domestic issues now. This week you were in Georgia. You were...
Okay, let's just wrap it there. We don't need to continue with this. That was a bit of a word salad: energetic diplomacy, aggressive and energetic. Those were the two key words that he was playing with there. He said a lot, but didn't say much of anything, really. If you read between the lines, you can kind of see that this is going nowhere, because the Russians are not coming to the table. This war is going to continue. Strangely, we got that post from Trump a couple of nights ago on Truth Social saying that it almost looked like he gave Ukraine the green light to go on the offensive. And I can say that since then, they have indeed done that. Because we've seen Ukraine take the fight to the Russians in the area of Pokrovsk. They've pushed Russian troops back. Some reports within the last 24 hours saying that Russian troops have been pushed back from their positions in that area, losing as much as 6 months worth of gains that the Russians had made, which had cost them somewhere in the range of, I think, about 30,000 troops over the 6-month period, and they lost that ground just within the last 2 days. In addition to that, we're seeing ongoing efforts to strike oil refineries, which we highlighted for you last night, and that has continued with an additional assault on a port. I believe it's called Osugia, and it's a major port that Russia relies on to get liquefied natural gas to market. And it looks like that has effectively been shut down. I have actually an aerial shot of that location of this port. And this, I believe, happened just overnight. And let me bring it up. So this is the port. So Ukraine is having a major impact on Russia's energy business now, not just oil, but liquefied natural gas as well. This puts a major dent into the economy. We have also shown you that this week, Russia began to ration gasoline, and we are getting very credible reports out of various parts of Russia where that is indeed happening, including in Crimea. And that may actually be the result of Trump signaling to the Ukrainians through Truth Social, go ahead, go on the offensive, because he said that under Biden, Ukraine never had permission to strike inside Russia. And how can you win a war when you're not allowed to strike back against the enemy? Paraphrasing, but that was just the gist of it. Then I saw other media reports saying that Trump had basically given Ukraine the green light. Media inside the United States not really reporting on it in quite that way, and it was only a single post. Then the next day, Trump kind of coming out with softer rhetoric, back to kind of where he was before. So you're getting this mixed messaging, and actions speak louder than words, and you're seeing results inside Ukraine as these peace negotiations seem to be falling apart. And Trump's saying that very soon he's going to come up with some sort of an announcement, a major announcement with regard to all of this, after he assesses who is really to blame for what is going on in Ukraine and who's to blame for peace being circumvented. I also take note of what happened with there was an attack on this U.S. factory inside Ukraine over the past 24 hours. And that also upsetting a lot of people on the American side. But Vance, in that interview on NBC, downplaying all of that, saying, well, you know, that's the way war is. And that's why we want to stop the killing. So I think some people hoping that the attack on that U.S. factory by Russia inside Ukraine, and apparently there were 600 people in that building, none of them killed, fortunately, but the attack itself, I think some people were hoping would maybe prompt Trump to take a more aggressive stance on the whole Ukraine issue at this point. Well, that remains to be seen. So a big word salad from JD Vance. Maybe that's because maybe he needs to do that in order to keep negotiations ongoing. But it just seemed like he was running around in circles to me in that interview. And to get to the truth of the matter, you really have to kind of read between the lines. So also today, Mark Carney from Canada speaking at the Independence Day events in Ukraine. Now I have the whole speech, not going to run it, and Zelensky's remarks as well, because those remarks coming through an audio system where the audio is just completely distorted. So they had some technical problems there as that broadcast was taking place. But I do have this clip from an alternate feed where the audio is cleaned up considerably. And here he says that Canada is the largest per capita donor to Ukraine. And he says that the support for Ukraine will continue. And here we go.
Mr. President, dear friends, my message today is simple. Canada will always stand in solidarity with Ukraine. Canada, under my predecessor, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has become the largest per capita contributor of financial aid to Ukraine. Today, I come here with the honor of leading Canada's new government, and I commit that Canada will remain by Ukraine's side in your fight for independence, sovereignty, and freedom.
Okay, I am going to just take note here that that was edited and is coming from just so you're aware of the context and the perspective here, that was edited and is posted on an anti-Carney X platform. Let me just come on over here and show you this as well. Okay, here we go. So Carney went on to say that from his perspective, Putin can be stopped. Show you the headline. This one from a lot of mainstream media picking this up, and alternative independents as well on social media tonight. But here's the CTV headline: Putin can't be stopped. PM Carney delivers Independence Day speech. Carney told Ukrainians that peace will come and Canada will be there when it does, in a speech to mark Ukrainian Independence Day, attending as the guest of honor alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv's Sofia Square. Carney described the war with Russia as a maniacal quest to recreate a history that itself was filled with injustice. Putin has broken his word repeatedly from Minsk to this morning. Putin has caused this terrible tragedy that has claimed the lives of millions. Putin menaces your skies, threatens your cities, destroys your fields. Putin has stolen your children. True. But Putin can be stopped. Russia's economy is weakening. He's becoming more isolated, and our alliance is hardening. Carney told the crowd, I will run a little bit of this because they have this feed at the top of this page anyway. So since we're here, let's listen to just a little bit of it in its distorted glory.
And dear journalists, first and foremost, I'd like to once again thank Mark for he makes this visit today. On such an important day for Ukraine and Ukrainians, the Independence Day. And this is extremely symbolic because Canada was among the first countries to recognize the restoration of Ukraine's independence, to recognize our sovereign state. And for 34 years now, we've been together with Canada as friends, partners, and we see eye to eye what our values are and how to defend these values. I'm grateful to Canada for all the support, and this support is absolutely genuine, and we appreciate also a special connection between our people and our cultures, because it is in Canada where we have one of the biggest and strongest Ukrainian communities, more than 1 million people. And this significantly adds to our relations, I'm sure that we will always be such close nations. Thank you. But today, Mark's visit is not limited to only symbolic things. He had a very substantial meeting. There are important, significant documents, clear agreements, the action plan on realizing the security agreement with our country, also an agreement on administrative help in customs affairs, which was signed on the level of our ministers, and also the agreement on drone production.
Isn't this awful audio? You enjoying this?
You are well aware of that. Now the times are that each day matters and must be substantial. We've spoken about diplomacy, about all our contacts and opportunities with partners. I've informed about.
Okay, oh my gosh, that's terrible. See if it gets any better down the line here. It's just awful audio. Terrible, terrible, terrible. It doesn't get any better. Okay, enough. I won't subject you to any more of that that torture. Terrible audio. Well, somebody probably lost their job as an audio tech today. Okay, let's take a little break while I clear out my ears, add my brain enough to move on to today's other top news story.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Looking more and more like that situation at the University of South Carolina is a false alarm. But until we confirm, until you're able to confirm, if you're down in that area, shelter in place tonight. And we'll try to keep you updated as the broadcast continues here this evening. Now, on to this story, which is actually in our thumbnail tonight on many of the platforms that we are broadcasting to. The Epstein story, the story that just won't stop haunting Donald Trump, front and center again, as the family of Virginia Giuffre outraged over the release this week of the transcript and some audio clips from the interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. Let's bring it up here. Justice Department gave Ghislaine Maxwell a platform to rewrite history. So says the family of this Epstein victim, or Epstein accuser. Virginia Giuffre's family said they are outraged by the agency's decision to release transcripts from Maxwell's bizarre interview with the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. We brought you those clips earlier this week, along with the visual transcript text from some of that interview, in particular the areas where she references Donald Trump specifically and Bill Clinton. Says here, family members, this is on NBC, by the way, with this story. Again, these guys, I think, dominating the headlines and the breaking news this weekend, certainly on this News Sunday. Family members of a prominent Jeffrey Epstein accuser, they say here, said they were outraged by the Justice Department's decision to release transcripts from Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony last month to a federal prosecutor, arguing it provided Maxwell, quote, a platform to rewrite history. The quote continues, the content of these transcripts is in direct contradiction with felon Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction for child sex trafficking. The family of Virginia Roberts Giuffre said in a statement. The family added, this travesty of justice entirely invalidates the experiences of the many brave survivors who put their safety, security, and lives on the line to ensure her conviction, including our sister. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche last month questioned Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence on sex trafficking charges, for 2 days as part of a stated effort by the Trump administration to uncover more information about Epstein's crimes. The Justice Department on Friday released audio and transcripts of the 2-day interview, during which Maxwell disputed several allegations of wrongdoing against her and Epstein, including by Giuffre, who died by suicide in April. Giuffre accused Maxwell of grooming her to be sexually abused by Epstein and trafficked to several of his powerful friends, including Prince Andrew, Duke of York. Giuffre separately sued Andrew in 2021, alleging he sexually abused her as a minor, which he has denied. The two later settled the case for an undisclosed amount in 2022. And during the interview with Blanche last month, Maxwell said Giuffre's allegation against Andrew doesn't hold water and disputed key facts in the case, including an alleged photo of Giuffre with Andrew. Quote, I believe that this whole thing was manufactured, and I can point you to some potentially corroborating evidence of this, Maxwell told Blanche. Giuffre's family accused the Deputy Attorney General of not sufficiently challenging Maxwell's assertions during her testimony, suggesting that by publicly releasing the interview, the Justice Department provided Maxwell the opportunity to dispute her case in the court of public opinion. Quote, during Todd Blanche's bizarre interview, she is never challenged about her court-proven lies, providing her a platform to rewrite history, the family statement reads. Maxwell also said she never witnessed any inappropriate conduct, which we heard in the clip that we ran for you on Friday. Any inappropriate conduct from any man, including Donald Trump. She denied the existence of any incriminating client list of individuals who benefited from Epstein's crimes and maintained her innocence after being convicted of sex trafficking in 2021. So which way is it? Is she guilty, not guilty? Did these things happen, not happen? She was convicted, so there must have been evidence, or was the whole court case just cooked up? Was it all a fabrication? In which case the justice system would then be under scrutiny and possibly a whole sham. Does that mean Maxwell's in prison for doing nothing? Unjustly imprisoned? Or is there something to all of this? So much contradiction again in this story, as we've seen all night in everything we're showing you. On Sunday, Senator Adam Schiff criticized Maxwell's statements to Blanche, claiming that she has the motivation to say anything that could potentially get her pardoned. And we have seen her transferred to a pretty cushy new place, new digs, where she's got it, on Easy Street at this new prison they transferred her to after, I guess maybe, I don't know, was there a deal maybe being made? They go and they do this interview, it says here, according to Schiff, without the presence of a prosecutor who actually knows the facts. He was on NBC's Meet the Press as well, referring to Blanche. She wants a pardon. She says exactly what her lawyers tell her is going to be necessary to get a pardon. No one should be surprised here. Ghislaine Maxwell has been consistent from day one, and her testimony is backed by documents, not politics. If she wanted to make up stories to curry favor, and this is from Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer, by the way, David Oscar, he says if she wanted to make up stories to curry favor, she could have targeted Democrats like President Clinton. She didn't, because she's telling the truth. The good congressman may fancy himself a mind reader, but on this, he's flat out wrong, Marcus said. Back and forth, the story that won't go away. Let's run some of this report from Sunday Today on NBC rather, just to give you a better sense of what this story is about.
Let's begin this morning with a new twist in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. The family of Epstein's most prominent accuser furious with the Trump administration after the Justice Department released audio and transcripts of an interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, who's convicted of recruiting and grooming young women for Epstein. NBC's Melanie Zanona has the latest. Melanie, good morning.
Willie, good morning. After that release, the family of Virginia Roberts Giuffre now speaking out, saying they are outraged by the DOJ's interview with Maxwell. Giuffre died by suicide in April, and information she provided to law enforcement was actually critical in securing Maxwell's conviction for sex trafficking, a charge of conviction that Maxwell's attorney maintains that despite the conviction, she is not guilty of. The Giuffre family statement reads in part, during Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's bizarre interview, she has never challenged about her court-proven lies, providing her a platform to rewrite history. This travesty of justice entirely invalidates the experiences of the many brave survivors who put their safety, security, and lives on the line to ensure her conviction, including our sister. They also then went on to criticize the DOJ for transferring Maxwell from a Florida prison to a lower security camp in Texas after the interview, saying it sends a disturbing message, Willie.
Melanie, another story I know you've been following there at the White House, a development in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Salvadoran man mistakenly deported to a high security prison in that country. What's the latest there?
Well, Willie, according to court files, the Trump administration has essentially given Abrego Garcia two options. He can either plead guilty to the criminal charges of human smuggling against him in Tennessee and then be deported to live freely in Costa Rica. Or if he doesn't plead guilty, he will be deported to Uganda. His attorney says the government is essentially trying to punish Abrego Garcia and vowed to fight deportation to Uganda tooth and nail, saying the offer is vindictive and an attempt to coerce Abrego Garcia to plead guilty. Willie?
Melanie Zanona in.
Okay. The whole thing, the whole Epstein thing is certainly tragic. And hang on just a moment while I clear some of this video off. I need to take a break here while I take care of an audio issue. I'll be right back on the other side.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And I'm also going to I'm going to highlight the tragic nature of this entire Epstein saga because it and scandal, because it has, I think, destroyed many lives, especially, when you including that of Giuffre. And the way she died was also something that was immersed in contradictory reports that left me at the time wondering what the truth was even surrounding her death. And at the time, you may recall, and this goes back, I think, to April, where we received these reports that she had been involved in this very serious car crash, and then she passed away. There were all kinds of conflicting reports about what the circumstances were surrounding all of it. And then we found out that she had taken her own life. This goes back here now to April 26th. BBC, other media reporting the same information. Giuffre, who accused Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein of sexual abuse, died by suicide at age 41. Many people not aware that she took her own life, because many people still believing that she was the victim of some sort of car accident. And then there were all kinds of conspiracy theories that spun up as a result of that, where maybe she was targeted and killed as a result of this car crash. Maybe someone intentionally collided with her. All kinds of conspiracies spinning around it. This report here indicating that Giuffre was one of the most outspoken accusers of sex offender Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, his former girlfriend. She alleged they trafficked her to the Duke of York when she was 17, which Prince Andrew has strenuously denied. And then if you scroll down, it says she lost her life to suicide after being a lifelong victim of sexual abuse and sex trafficking, they said in this statement from relatives. The statement described the mother of three as the light that lifted so many survivors and said she died on Friday at her farm in Western Australia. West Australia police said they were called to a home in Nergaby, in the Nergaby area on Friday night. This is back in April, where Ms. Giuffre was found unresponsive. In a statement, they wrote, "The death is being investigated by the major crime detectives. Early indication is the death is not suspicious." And then it says here, and this is related to the reports of a car accident. 3 weeks ago, Ms. Giuffre posted on Instagram to say she had been seriously injured in a car accident, which her family later said she had not intended to make public. Local police later disputed the severity of the crash. So again, just very strange circumstances surrounding just a victim, not just of Jeffrey Epstein or the other people involved in it, but the whole media circus that has evolved, that was created as a result of all of the abuse and the tragedy and the politics. It's really gross.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV,
the entire world is watching.
On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just dipping back into this whole thing at the University of South Carolina, and it is looking very much like the whole thing was the product of a false report of some kind, fueled by misinformation and conspiracy theories. People jumping to conclusions, people looking for clicks on social media, amplifying information that is unverified. And here, take a look. University of South Carolina active shooter alerts went out about an hour ago, and immediately the misinformation went viral. The student responsible for the shooter on the bridge video could have endangered lives by warning to be on the lookout for the wrong person. So there is that aspect to it too. If you're issuing information on social media saying that, say, this alleged possible suspect here, which we showed you, is armed and possibly dangerous, and people freak out, you could put that person's life in jeopardy because someone may attack that person or someone who looks like him. You don't know what's going to happen when you post information like that. That's why it's important to be accurate, be honest. And it looks like we've got a situation here tonight where things got out of hand on social media. Maybe a lesson to be learned here, but somehow I think nothing will be learned as a result of this. And now, of course, people going after this guy. Now, maybe he did it with the best of intentions. Maybe he did it because he was looking for clicks. Maybe, who knows? We'll have to wait till we get more accurate information again. But already people looking for this guy's head now. So everybody always wants to hold somebody accountable, string them up, throw them in jail, do something worse, maybe. And I say, hold your horses, stay calm, deal with facts. But they're calling this guy out here, whoever this guy is the person who posted the video initially of the alleged possible gunman. And now it looks like the whole thing has turned out to be a false alarm. Frustrating. Information, it's powerful. Got to be careful with it. Be responsible. Be truthful, be honest, be accurate. When it comes to news, be first whenever possible, accurate without exception. That's why I was warning you, like it was a story because it had gone viral. But I said, remember, take it all with a grain of salt. This is an alleged possible gunman, University of South Carolina. So the alerts went out, authorities warning people, take cover. You know what happened. Now, off to Ottawa we go. Let me see if I can get you the video here that I had queued up. I'll try to get you the latest stuff. Where we saw today's Pride parade shut down by pro-Palestine protesters. Quite a bit of video coming out of there today. It was canceled partway through, and I guess everything was okay for about the first hour and a half, and then there was some sort of disruption with pro-Palestine protesters. We'll bring you some of the video from the event there today. And I got to bring the audio down on this. We're going to get a copyright strike. I'll just bring you the video. You don't need the produced music, which is actually not audio from the event anyway. So this was in the nation's capital. This is not the shutdown part. Photos. Let's do a little Twitter scroll, shall we? Jewish Ottawa posting these photos from the parade. And this was 5 hours ago. Pride Parade Group has been just informed by Fierte Cap Pride that, see how I say my French with a Spanish accent? In Kanakistanian language. The Ottawa Pride Parade is canceled due to a protest. And here we go.
Our pride, it belongs to us. The village. We are the village. We are claiming our pride. It belongs to us as a queer community. And we are going to wait until Capital Pride is accountable to us. Woo! Capital Pride has to commit to next steps in solidarity with Palestine, just like other prides around the world have done, just like Tokyo Pride. Boycott, divestment, sanctions. Capital Pride has already committed verbally. We are waiting for them to commit in full view of this entire beautiful village. And we are waiting for our elected officials who last year boycotted our pride to come and to apologize. Because if you stand with us, you stand with Palestine unconditionally. Have fun, folks. This is a party. This is our space. We are claiming it. Circulate our friends throughout the parade. Support us. And we will wait until we have justice.
Okay, here's more video. Great block right there. So this guy, Avi Abraham Beniolo or Benlolo. Sorry, I can't pronounce the name. The most hypocritical thing of all is that gay rights would not be tolerated in Gaza or Ramallah, it says here, but it's welcomed in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They stand for tyrants and barbarians instead of with civilized society in Israel. Shame. Bringing up this, what is this? Oh, it's the CBC article. Pride parade canceled after being halted by pro-Palestinian protesters. Are you seeing that on the screen? Let me bring you the page that link took us to. There it is. Put it up. So we have CBC saying Ottawa's annual Pride Parade was canceled Sunday after it was halted by a local pro-Palestinian advocacy group that blocked the road and demanded to negotiate with organizers. The group Queers for Palestine, Ottawa Q4P, halted the parade, quote, with the permission of the Grand Marshal, the organization said in a press release issued Sunday, just as the parade was stopped. This is what a village looks like, and we heard the address from that protester with the megaphone. They also demanded Mayor Mark Sutcliffe and other elected officials apologize for the 2024 boycott of the Capitol Pride and called on them to stand with us and all oppressed peoples, including Palestinians. No pride in genocide, says the banner. Let's go back to the Twitter scroll. See what else has been posted. Here's Daisy.
Behind me, and as you can see, there's a little more room here than there was. This thing has been stalled out here on Wellington Street for over an hour, at least an hour. Just got word from OPS, the entire thing is canceled. Palestinian protesters took this thing over on Wellington from the very start. They've basically jammed the whole thing to a halt. The entire parade has been canceled as Palestinian demonstrators have taken over the front and stopped it.
People saying to me in recent weeks that they're upset with all the Palestinian protesters that they're seeing on the streets. And I have said to some, you might be surprised when you find out who's actually behind the masks. Quite often, it's not Palestinians at all. We'll continue the scroll here. All the more special this year, it says here. This is posted by True North Eager Beaver Media. whatever that is. And all the more special this year, given it says here, the parade route goes in front of the Parliament buildings once again, because Pride started as a protest and the job isn't done yet. So, okay, you kind of looking at it like a protest being protested by a bunch of protesters protesting something a little bit unrelated to the whole Pride thing anyway, but politics is a very strange thing. Oh my, okay. Didn't need to see that. And here's
Give him
blockade again.
Are you a fascist? It's you guys that are acting like fascists, blocking my camera and preventing me from filming. Don't touch me.
almost free! Palestine is almost free!
What's going fine, man? Albania is fine, but...
Palestine is almost free!
What are you guys doing here? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I'm trying to film in public, which is my constitutional right.
And we're allowed to move in public.
No, you're not allowed to impede people.
United!
Guys!
He's touching me.
God!
If you are going to move me, I will move you.
God! Stop touching me!
Don't talk to him. Just call him.
What am I supposed to do if they start assaulting me?
They just put his hands on him. I just watched it happen.
Like they just pushed me and surrounded me.
That person right there.
There you go.
Just put his hands on
I
him.
also have it on video.
Okay? I just saw it. He's standing right there. That person right there.
Just you're trying to get rid of me. This guy's trying to. This officer's trying to push me away.
We don't want any trouble. Come on, guys.
Sure, that's fair, but then stop the trouble that's happening, officer.
The rest of the city, sir.
They've illegally shut this down and they're pushing me around,
That's what I'm saying.
and the officer is threatening me. Like,
No, they can't do anything.
he just pushed me. They threatened to arrest me a bunch of times. These guys. Like, craziness. Okay, we already have your face. They're now putting on disguises so they continue with their criminality. Like that's clearly intent. Well, I need to for my protection. Like.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
You know, the battle over the wildfires in Canada continues. Everybody knows what's going on, pretty much. Got a lot of fires and a lot of smoke. I think air quality is still kind of an issue. And we've seen pressure from U.S. politicians saying Canada needs to do a better job of managing forest fires. Yeah. And then I heard earlier today reports about wildfires in the U.S. So I thought, well, there's something maybe we should take a look at tonight. So we're going to do that right now. Let's go to the National Fire News website. National Interagency Fire Center. Here it is. Seems wildfires are not simply a Canadian problem. National Preparedness Level 4. August 24th, across the country, this is the USA, more than 17,400 wildland firefighters and support personnel are assigned to incidents. These men and women leave behind their families and friends to work long hours in tough conditions, protecting lives, homes, and public lands. Their dedication makes a difference every single day, and one of the best ways we can show our gratitude is by preventing new ignitions. There are 50 uncontained large fires burning across the United States today, with nearly 1 million acres already burned this year. Hot, dry, unstable weather continues across much of the West with very low humidity and thunderstorms that could bring both lightning and gusty winds. These conditions mean that any spark, whether from people or nature, has the potential to grow quickly. Predictive Services has fuels and fire danger advisories in effect for several Western states, underscoring the importance of safe choices outdoors. Please make sure campfires are fully out, secure trailer chains, and follow local fire restrictions. The 2025 National Fire Year themes remind us that it takes all of us, keeping firefighters, support personnel, and the public safe, reducing smoke impacts, working together to protect communities, and being responsible when we enjoy public lands. Your choices this weekend matter for the safety of our landscapes and communities in the days ahead, and for helping firefighters and support personnel return home safely to their families. So they're talking about the weather here. Hot, dry, unstable conditions prevail across much of the West Coast and west of the Cascades and Sierra, and across the Pacific Northwest and western Montana. Temperatures 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Monsoonal moisture moving over the area will start to increase RH a little. However, a low RH of 10 to 20% is expected over the area. Just daily statistics. States currently reporting large fires: Montana, Wyoming. So Montana has 10, Wyoming has 6 major fires, Idaho 6, Arizona 5, Colorado 5, Utah 5, California 4, Washington 2, Oregon 1, Louisiana, New Mexico, Nevada, Florida, Hawaii, and Texas all have at least one major fire, but it looks like in 2 cases the fires have been contained. Acres from all active large fires, 993,371 acres. Year-to-date statistics, fires 45,177. Is that right? Acres, 4,052,850 acres affected by wildfires in the United States this year, 2025, as of today. Well, I find these statistics to be very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Because we've heard so much about how Canada, according to some influencers out there, are saying that our government has been setting these fires in Canada on purpose to, I saw one guy the other day say that it was our fault, that we were smoking out the Americans on purpose. But it seems that they have similar problems south of the border. Yes. Well, we've seen it in California, right? Yes, we did. Where Los Angeles itself was directly affected by wildfires that got out of control. So it's not exclusive to Canada. A heavily forested country, second largest country by landmass in the world, with massive massive forested areas. And yes, arson a factor, other things also contributing to wildfires. So I just hope that that helps put things in perspective. The United States, also a huge country, large land mass, lots of naturally forested areas, vulnerable to wildfires, and we're getting them right now because it is wildfire season across the United States. Thus, Smokey the Bear. In fact, you know what? Let's go find us one of those old classic Smokey the Bear public service announcements. Only you can prevent forest fires. Here we go. How about this one here? Oh, memories. I like Smokey the Bear. I called him Yogi the Bear the other day by accident, which just shows my age as well. And today, Yellowstone has taken on a whole new meaning with the Kevin Costner series. But I remember not Yellowstone, but Jellystone Park. Okay, here's the Smokey the Bear PSA from the 1980s.
It only takes a careless moment to turn this into this. Don't let forest fires be your fault. Make sure your fire is dead out.
Remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
That was the Canadian forestry industry. Isn't that interesting? So we've been participating and cooperating with the United States to prevent forest fires for a long time, too. Here, let's find another one, shall we? Here's one from the 80s. I hope we don't get a copyright strike on this stuff. We're trying to do good here. Please don't copyright strike the channel. Mr. Copyright Strike Police Officer.
Be right there. Wait. Use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel. Then make sure it's cool.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Brushed up on some tips before we left. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's right. Only you can prevent wildfires. Because just like Superman, there's a little bit of Smokey the Bear in all of us. Always use your superpowers for good, never for evil. We'll be checking in with Dragon to see if anything significant happened in Montreal overnight during their Pride Parade and the counter-protest parade up there. So far, no reports out of Montreal tonight. So we will assume that all is quiet. I'm going to do a little check just before we sign off here. See what we got going on the Montreal front. Any significant delays up there tonight? No. Everything's so far looking okay. Nothing significant, but I'm told that what's possibly going to happen up there might not happen until later in the evening after talking with Dragon earlier. And not sure. So we'll see what happens. All right, folks. With that, I think it's time to wrap up for the evening. What shall we leave you with tonight as a parting musical interlude or exit? How about Got to pick something a little snappier tonight. Well, since we're going back to the 1980s, how about we take a trip back in time with the DeLorean, Time Machine, Magic 88. Here we go. Enjoy. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. In the future. On the flip side.
Future's in sight, the DeLorean's ready, it's time to ignite. Stainless steel with the gull-wing doors, this machine's built to break all the laws. Flux capacitor lights the way when the speed hits 88. Through the years the world will know this time machine's the star of the show. Magic 88, we're flying through time in a DeLorean, feeling so fine. With Mr. Fusion we're set to soar past present, future, forevermore. Magic 88, hold on tight, in the DeLorean we light up the night. Hit the gas, the road's a blur, in the blink of an eye it's all astir. Lightning bolts power up the ride, with Mr. Fusion charged up inside. Fueling the future with scraps in hand, turning trash into power, that's the plan. From Hill Valley to the stars above, the DeLorean's ride is the one we love. Magic 88, we're flying through time in a DeLorean, feeling so fine. With Mr. Fusion we're set to soar past present, future, forevermore. Magic 88, hold on tight, in the DeLorean we light up the night. Great Scott, we're on the move in that DeLorean, we found the groove. From Cotswold ride to Marty's scream, this car's the heart of the dream. Movie magic shining bright, DeLorean's wings ready for flight. Through history it stole the show, now forever it's the car we know. Magic 88, we're flying through time in a DeLorean, feeling so fine. With Mr. Fusion we're set to soar past present, future, forevermore. Magic 88, hold on tight, in the DeLorean we light up the night. When you see those lights aglow and the tires blaze as the legends go, remember the ride that made us believe. With Mr. Fusion's power we never leave. We're flying through time in a DeLorean, feeling so fine. With Mr. Fusion we're set to soar past present, future, forevermore. Magic 88, hold on tight, in the DeLorean we light up the night. Great Scott, we're on the move, in that DeLorean we found the groove. From Doc's wild ride to Marty's scream, this car's the heart of the dream. We never leave.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.